This week on Win Today.
Sometimes the most difficult people in my life have been the ones that actually give me clarity on why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you're doing it for applause, join the circus.
It's our limiting beliefs that ultimately keep us from becoming the best we're capable of becoming. Something's got to change, but that change has to happen first on the inside. I don't want to wake up in 5 years and say, how did I end up here? It's time to get unstuck. It's time to get your why back. It's never too late. Let's start today.
Helping you design your roadmap to wholeness from the inside out. This is Win Today. And now, here's your host, Christopher Cook.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for the download. I'm so glad you've joined today's conversation. You know, guys, we talk about living intentionally a lot on this show. We talk about walking through pain and hard stuff in life. But imagine having the secret of living without fear or care or constraint or even worry. You know, I really believe it's possible. See, the path toward the outsized, unfettered, liberated existence we all long for is found in a truth as simple to say as it is hard to do. And guys, that's love people, especially the difficult ones. Especially the difficult ones without distinction and without limits. I see you nodding your heads, and I'm raising my hand right with you. And see, the path to doing so isn't found in a formula or a 5-step plan. Folks, it's found in living a life characterized by belief, vulnerability, connection, and an unwavering commitment to remind people in your life about who they are. Well, today, I'm sitting down with a cup of tea and someone whose life epitomizes exactly those characteristics. His name, Bob Goff. Millions of you know who he is. And today we're talking all about living a meaningful life through the lens of his brand new book, Everybody Always. Guys, I'm not kidding when I say the book left me in tears as much as laughter and even contemplation. It's so real, just like the conversation we're about to have. I tell you what, there's no real reason to keep talking, so without further ado, let's get right to it. My conversation with the one, with the only, Bob Goff. Hi, Bob. I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome to Win Today.
Hey, thanks a million. I appreciate being on.
Oh, you're welcome, Bob. Let's dive right in. Today we're talking all about your brand new book, Everybody Always. And Bob, we have such a short time together, so I really just want to set up a platform for you to simply tell stories and inspire us. And I'll tell you what, as I read the book, a few key themes really stood out. And folks, I really want you to grab hold of the thread we're talking about. And Bob, I've really found that living this life of significance is characterized by belief and vulnerability and connection and an unwavering commitment to remind people in our lives about who they are. Why is that so important? How have you done it? And what does transformation really look like in everyday life, in your life?
No, I totally get that. The whole idea is a pretty simple one, and nobody needs any more information about loving each other. What we need to do is just pause long enough to do it.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to love really nice people. Like, you'd be low-hanging fruit. You're a nice guy.
Thanks, Bob.
But how do you love the people who creep you out?
Yeah.
Like the people that are just a little wrong-minded, or they're just the way that they approach people, it's coarse. And I was supposed to write a book about 5 years ago after Love Does. I just never got around to it. I didn't have anything to say. But then I don't know if you've noticed, it just seems like everybody's on edge these days.
So much.
So I think, I really actually want to write a book about that. How do you love people that are actually difficult? And then what do you do when there's some setbacks along the way? Because we've all experienced them.
Yeah.
So it isn't just about this, Hallmark card kind of love, but to actually deal with the complexities of life. Mm-hmm. So if you read Love Does, that would be the first book, and that would be like, let's go get a puppy. And Everybody Always is, let's go raise that puppy. So this a little bit more dealing with the complexities of how do you navigate difficult people, and you actually just kind of navigate it with love.
Yeah.
And it's not just a squishy love. So I've just used examples. That's what Jesus did. He always says in Matthew 13, he never spoke to anybody without telling them a story. And I think I understand why, because I have all the information I need. I just need a story from your life or somebody else's life that I can connect with. And when you really connect with a story, you see right through that person's story and you see your own story. Isn't that crazy how that works?
It's so good, Bob. And what I appreciate so much about your life and even this book is not only the steps you've taken in life, but it's kind of like Jesus. It's the stops. And Bob, there's so much intentionality in the way you position yourself in relationships. And that's even kind of like my goal here on the show, which is wholeness. And I love what you wrote in chapter 3 of the book. You said this, quote, "When joy is a habit, love is a reflex." Oh, I love that. I just love to hear more about this. Bob, it's not mechanics. It's the posture of your heart, right?
Yeah, and you see a need, you meet a need. What we did with the first book, Love Does, we just gave all the money away, and we went around the world starting schools in these countries that are in the middle of civil wars. So we're just continuing to do that, which cracks me up because my worst subject in school was school. But I'm pretty good at starting, and I've seen the power of an education for these young girls in particular, opportunities it opens up for them. And so we're starting our next school in 2 weeks in Afghanistan. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh,
so that's just going to be awesome. So we've rented the building. We're going over to open it up. It's going to be terrific.
That's so
and so one of the things that we sometimes think of is something overseas is like more noble or whatever. And I think God is dazzled when we go across the street. To find somebody, a neighbor, that whole idea. When a lawyer like me tried to set up Jesus and said, "What's the big commandment?" It was love God with your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor. So I would say for your listeners, find somebody who's actually difficult to love. They're a little prickly, and engage them with love. But when love has an agenda, it isn't love anymore. And so loving people without an agenda. Sometimes people where faith is a big deal for them, they want to help God out by telling them all about what they ought to believe. And that actually isn't that effective. And it actually isn't what Jesus said. It was Matthew 16. He said that flesh and blood doesn't reveal things to you, but it's the Spirit. And it's the spirit of kindness. It's the spirit of gentleness. It's all those things that people appreciate. When you've been loved well, then you tend to love other people really well and without agenda.
And I love what you just said, Bob, because I really think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we can't really endeavor to make that level of connection without knowing who we are. But I'd say even more so than that, not only who we are, but whose we are. And I don't know, Bob, for me, it's like when I know who I am and whose I am, it creates ample room in my life to then pursue connection with other people. And as a Christian, Bob, learning principles of the Word has really helped shape me, but sitting at the feet of Jesus has transformed me. Is that what we're talking about? Would you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I think sometimes we read the story about Jesus' buddies, taking the shingles off the roof and lowering this guy in front of Jesus. And I think that we think we're helping the creepy people by taking the shingles off and lowering them down. And I really think that they're lowering us. I think sometimes the most difficult people in my life have been the ones that actually give me clarity on why I'm doing what I'm doing. That if you're doing it for applause, join the circus. But if you actually want to love people without applause and recognition, then just find some people who creep you and everybody else out.
Wow.
Because you won't get any kudos. They're not going to clap for you. They're probably going to call you names. They might shoot you. I mean, it's just crazy. But if you do it and don't make a big deal about it, then you'll actually understand a little bit more about your faith.
Bob, you're such a witty person, but your authenticity cuts through, I think, even some of the hardest hearts. I want to go back to that story in the book and just have you give us, maybe pull back the curtain, give us some more personal context. I'll never forget, it's in the chapter about the limo driver. So here you are, and you peer through the sliding window, and you said, "Have you ever been back here?" Something to that effect. And he said, "No, I'd get fired." So you pull over, you grab his hat, you end up driving the limo. He's in the back as a passenger. He gets out. You
Isn't
affirm
that
him.
awesome?
Oh my gosh!
Oh, it's terrific.
Yes,
and that thing can corner really well. And so when we got to where we were going, I let him out, and I carried these medals around with me. I got some with me right now, and I just put a couple on his chest, and I just told him how courageous he was, and he was just nuts. Let me be the guy that was driving the limo.
Yeah.
And when he went home to this woman he's been living with for the last 15 years, I don't think he said, I met a Christian guy that said we're supposed to be married.
Yeah.
He said, I met a guy who told me who I was. And I think that's the people that we really want to be. Before we got complicated trying to help Jesus out by telling everybody what they ought to believe, just tell people who they are. And I just believe the Spirit of God's going to let them know. And that isn't me speaking, that's Jesus speaking. Flesh and blood doesn't reveal it to you, but the Spirit. And so what we need to do is just love people authentically, and we need to be authentic ourselves. Like we need to say, I got malaria a little while ago on one of these trips to Africa because I never take the malaria meds.
Oh my gosh, Bob.
Move. So I ended up in the ICU. It was awesome. I lost like 30 pounds. The best weight loss program ever. But it'll kill you, but you can lose a lot of pounds. And after this little bout, I ended up with this little shimmer in my left hand. I don't know why. Just something like got disconnected, evidently. So I was back in D.C. A couple of weeks ago, and they said, hey, I want you to, everybody reach out and hold hands with the person next to you. And I was like, oh, shoot, I actually don't want to do that because I don't want them to think I'm weak, and I don't want them to think I'm nervous being with them. I just got this quirky thing. I'm not going to be able to explain it. So do you know what I did? I put my hands in my pockets. And I was thinking about that beautiful story of Jesus meeting the guy that had a problem with his hand too. Yep. And he said, stretch out your hand. And so I did, and that was such a small thing for anybody else, but it was kind of a big thing for me. And here's the deal. Like God doesn't compare our leaves. He never compares what he creates.
Yeah.
And he created all of us, and we've all got something a little wonky about us. We've all got these insecurities. And at some point, we could decide to stretch out our hands. He could have fixed the guy's hand in his pocket, but I think there's something beautiful about just actually getting beyond yourself and reaching out your hand to someone else. And I wouldn't reach it out to somebody who's really easy to reach out to, because everybody's reaching out their hand to them.
Yeah.
Find somebody who's creepy. Find somebody who nobody's reaching out to. Now we got a ballgame.
And that takes so much risk. It takes so much security, as we were just saying, Bob, and identity. You know, here's the deal, and it's kind of triggering this thought, Bob. Here's the deal: post-election 2016, we're still kind of bruised as a country, and to your point, we've created so many slots and silos and labels and acronyms in the world. I think it's a symptom of a deeper issue, and to me, a lot of it has built even thicker walls instead of bridges towards people. You know, we've got words like gay, straight, trans, Democrat, Republican, left, right, Hillary, Trump, Christian, Muslim, woman, black, white, you know, and here's the blunt question, Bob. How do we develop this muscle and motivation to run toward people who creep us out and are so different to us, and then stay engaged enough to connect?
Maybe you could find whatever political person creeps you out the most and make a donation to them. Just $5. It'll get you on their mailing list. It'll remind you every third or fourth day when they send you something. You're like, no. They like this idea of love your enemies. Matthew 5. It didn't stop there. It said, love your enemies so you can be perfect like your Father in heaven is. And I got a job out of college, and I thought it was the perfect job, and it turns out it wasn't. And then I met this girl. I thought she'd be the perfect wife. And sweet Maria Goff's pretty amazing, but I'm not perfect, and neither is she.
Yeah.
And so we just think this idea of perfect is like it's totally unattainable. And I think there's something beautiful. What if you said, I want to be perfect? Now, don't go around telling everybody that because you think they're stuck up. But I'll tell you, Jesus said the way to get there is to love your enemies. It isn't to like spend more time in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
It's spend more time in front of people who creep you out.
It's such a hard truth, Bob, and it sounds good on paper, and it even sounds super Christian, you know, just like talking about it. But it reminds me of a quote from Brene Brown. She says, when we get up close and personal to people, it's really hard to hate them. And a lot of people, Bob, have been wounded deeply in relationships, and we've got this call to action to move closer, to go to people who creep us out like we've been talking about. But that creates such an aversion to more pain for so many more people. I mean, we self-protect. I do it all the time. So how do we get around this, Bob? Like, how do I push through the wall and build a bridge?
Yep. part of it is realizing that not only do they creep you out, you creep them out.
Yeah.
So realizing that they're probably more terrified to meet you than you are to meet them. I'll give you a great example.
Please.
When I was writing the book, it was time to pick a cover, and they sent me all these covers, and I don't know, none of them were blowing my hair back. So after I tried Uganda's first death penalty case ever, we started meeting with witch doctors, because I'm like thinking of loving my enemies. And I asked these guys, I met with 1,000 witch doctors, and I asked them, what do you guys need? And they said, we don't know how to read or write. So get this, I started a witch doctor school.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about a creepy thing. And the only books we have in witch doctor school, they don't need to know how to be witch doctors. They already know. But what I do is I teach them how to read and write, and the only books they have are the Bible and Love Does.
Unreal.
And so I flew over there last month, and I said, tell you what, I wrote this book called Everybody Always, and I'm a little better at spelling than you guys right now, but why don't you make the cover out of your fingerprints? Those are not balloons on the cover, baby.
I'm holding the book in my hand right now, and I'm going, at first, Bob, because of the balloons and Love Does, I thought, oh, those are cool. I cannot believe it. I'm looking at the cover right now. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So that would be an example. And if you love people that way, you'll be terribly misunderstood all the time. It'll be awesome. It'll keep you really humble, and you'll say, like, no, actually, I want to see these men and women for who they're turning into. And I'll tell you, I get my first phone call usually like 5 in the morning. It's always some guy on the East Coast, because it's 8 in the morning there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my last call at midnight, and it was from 2 witch doctors in witch doctor school. And they said a new witch doctor has moved into town, and he abducted a little boy, and they're going to do a child sacrifice tonight. And they called to ask me whether I thought they ought to go get him.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
I'm standing on the bed in my boxers, screaming into the phone. I'm like, get that kid! And 4 hours later, I get a text message from these 2 bad guys in witch doctor school, and they said, we've rescued the child. He's with his mother. And the last 2 words of the text message, Love Does. Now, these are guys, I've never rescued anybody from a witch doctor, but these bad guys met somebody in a group of people that started seeing them for who they're turning into, and started trying to just help them with what they needed next. And they started doing things I could never do. It's beautiful. I'm actually their student. They're not mine.
Wow. Bob, is it ever hard for you in your own life to live this out? I mean, just pull back the curtain. I mean, there's such truth in this, and I think your life epitomizes this, because I read the words on your page, and there's so many stories in the book. But do you ever wake up and just say, no, not today. I'm not doing it today?
Oh, yeah, totally. I've got a couple questions every once in a while. I mean, you go get a visa in Afghanistan.
Oh, my gosh.
But I just I have such a clear idea about the man that I want to become, that I'm willing to overcome all the impediments in my own life, my own insecurities and all that. And the whole idea of not looking for applause, but we're looking for Jesus in this. And if I really want to grow in my faith, I've got to get more desperate, because comfortable people don't need Jesus. Only desperate people do. And I'm comfortable. That's my biggest problem. I got a boat, a car, a wife, a dog. I got all this stuff, and I need to get more desperate. I don't need to get more popular, because if I could play a Stratocaster electric guitar and melt people's faces, I'd want to be popular. But I just want to be more and more uncomfortable. And so I'm just dismembering my life a little at a time. I gave away my own law firm. That was 2 years ago. I just said, I'm out. It's all yours. And then we're just like, we write books and we build schools with it. So just for everybody's going to be different. And again, what dazzled God is when you go across an office, when you go across a campus, when you go across the street, not when you go across an ocean. Because going across an ocean just means you flew over millions of people's heads. What would dazzle him is if somebody listening had a beef with somebody and then they just went and squared it up. I spoke at a church. They'll never invite me back. I told everybody from Matthew 5 that says if you are going to worship and realize somebody has something against you, leave your gift, go square up, and then come back. I said, hey, churches, go outside, everybody outside, go square up with whoever it is that got a beef against you, And if you don't want to do that, don't come back. I'm just not my idea. It was Jesus talking.
Yeah.
So I would be one of those guys that had so many different beefs with people, I wouldn't let myself back in. And I'm working on it a little bit at a time, just trying to square up with people that have hurt my feelings along the way. And I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer.
It's really something, Bob. You know, we're landing the plane here, Bob, and I know we're short on time, but I'd just love to just turn you loose and speak to everyone in our final minutes about overcoming insecurity and identity issues and really being people who pursue others from a place of saying, no, I want authentic connection. I want to, as you talked about in your book, I don't want to tell people what to do. I want to tell them who they are. Just land this plane, throw a challenge out to all of us.
I would just say the whole idea of availability. Like in Love Does, on the last page, I put my cell phone number. Because I was thinking about how Jesus just got more and more available as time went by. And that doesn't make me Jesus. It just makes us like him the more available we are.
Yeah.
And so for the last 5 years, I've been fielding 100 calls a day. And the whole thing that's really been beautiful, I don't know if anybody else is enjoying it, but what I'm changing is this idea of living a life of constant interruptions. And so just continually get interrupted, and that will dislodge you from these normal patterns in your life. What we do, it's like finger memory. Like you have these patterns that you establish in your life, and if you want to grow, you need to have new patterns. If you want a new pattern, you got to carve a new groove in your brain, and then you need to go deeper with that groove. And I'm not trying to just do surface water here. I want to go Grand Canyon. And the way to go Grand Canyon with this is to repeat these things to create new rhythms in your life. Like I have no left pockets in any of my pants. If you think that's sort of pretty quirky, it's because my right pockets are the things I want to keep and my left pockets are the things I want to let go of. And so when somebody says something that's kind of hurtful, I just go left pocket. Let go left pocket on that one. I'm just not going to hang on to it. I'm not going to harbor a feeling. I'm not going to figure out about why I'm right, but I'm also not going to argue with people. And I'm a lawyer. I win arguments for a living. But I'm not trying to be Jesus's lawyer. And so when somebody gets something wrong in their worldview that differs from mine, I just go back to Scripture, because for me, that's what's important. So go back to whatever you think are the source documents. And so for me, that's the Word of God. But for somebody else, it might be something else. I don't care if it's a cookie recipe. Go back to whatever you think is the most important, life-changing words you've got, and go back and check whatever somebody said against that. And so there's something beautiful in try to control other people's conduct. Figure out for yourself, where am I going to get all my source information from? And then continue to go back there. I haven't had a quiet time in 20 years. Mine are super loud. I think of everything I learned the day before, and I say, is there anything in Scripture that can give me more clarity on that? So it doesn't feel like a Bible study. It feels like Bible doing. It feels like engaging this stuff and saying, how could I be a more humble version of me?
Wow.
And I'm still working on it.
Folks, he is Bob Goff. He's the author of the brand new book, Everybody Always. It's available right now. You can go to wintoday.tv/episode 92. I'll have a link to purchase it. But Bob, thanks so much for taking the time for all of us at Win Today. What a challenging, inspiring conversation. You're incredible.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a million. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, you're welcome, Bob. Bob Goff truly is one of the most unique, compassionate, empathetic, energized, creative, Jesus-like people I've ever spoken to in my life. I'm not exaggerating. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Bob Goff. As I mentioned, you can get his brand new New York Times best-selling book, Everybody Always, right now by going to wintoday.tv/episode 92. But up next, speaking of relationships and people, I asked Jimmy Evans what's the best relationship advice he's ever received. Here's what Jimmy had to say on this week's Mentoring Minute.
The best relationship advice I've ever received is Jesus Christ is the most important issue in any relationship. Jesus came to the woman at the well of Samaria in John 4. She had been married 5 times. Now, he knew that. And a lot of times when we read the story of the Samaritan woman, we really don't read it in context, because this was not just an unplanned encounter with the Samaritan woman. Jesus went to her as a marriage counselor. He knew she'd been married 5 times, and he knew what the problem was. And he walked up to her, and she was alone because she was an outcast. Women don't go anywhere by themselves. They go with a group of women. And she was at the well by herself because she was a social outcast. And Jesus said to her, "Lady, if you keep drinking from that well, you're going to keep being thirsty." And he was talking about soul thirst. And he was talking about men. "Lady, if you keep trying to squeeze men and get God out of them, you're going to keep being soul thirsty. But if you knew who you were talking to, you would ask me, and I would give you a drink, and never be thirsty again." And here's the point, Chris. Our most important needs can only be met by Jesus Christ, not a human being. The most important needs we have are acceptance, identity, security, and purpose. And if we don't go to God daily to get those needs met, we automatically transfer that expectation to our spouse and the people around us. And we set every relationship up in our life for failure. Only Jesus can meet my deepest needs. And Galatians 5 says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's the personality of Jesus. That's who you want to be married to. You say, well, how do I get that personality? By going to God every morning and saying, "Holy Spirit, I need you." If I relate out of my own natural personality, I'm going to hurt some people today, and I'm going to have a really hard time relating. I want you to fill me with your Spirit. And I want everyone around me today to get the overflow of the fullness that you fill me with. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day.
It's good.
I come to Jesus every morning and I say, "Lord, I need you to make me feel like somebody. I need you to give me purpose. I need you to make me feel secure. I need you to accept me." I bring my hurts, my fears, my needs to Jesus. He meets them. He takes care of me. Only He can meet my deepest needs. And He said to the woman there, "If you keep drinking from that well, man, if men are going to be your primary source, you're going to always be thirsty." And see, the problem, Chris, is she rejected 5 men. She thought she had a bad husband 5 times. And she didn't have a bad husband. She just had a bad relationship with God. And so all of us need Jesus as the bedrock of every relationship in our lives. And we have a daily dependent relationship with Jesus that transforms our ability to relate.
Isn't that really interesting that our conversation today has really been centered upon relating to people, connecting with people, and adding value to people? You know, guys, everyone communicates, but fewer people connect. And connection is what makes the difference for the long run. Guys, thanks again for joining my conversation today with Bob Goff. As I mentioned, his brand new book, which is immediately a New York Times bestseller, Everybody Always, is available right now. Go to wintoday.tv/episode 92. I'll have a link to purchase it. But guys, as I say, and this is because many of you are new to the show, a lot of people listening right now feel worn out and stressed out and unsuccessful. But it doesn't have to be that way. There is a way out, but it's going to take some determination. It's going to take some focus. But that's why I'm here. It's why I'm here to be your guide to design your roadmap to wholeness from the inside out. And it does start on the inside. Okay, I need you to do something for me. Today's show with Bob was awesome. I love the conversation. And if you did too, I want you to go to iTunes right now and write a review of Win Today. It would really mean a lot to me. And it would help widen the reach of the audience to help other people become whole from the inside out. Guys, you can also leave that review right on your podcast app. Super easy. I promise it'll take no more than 2 minutes. Guys, don't miss next week. My guest needs little introduction because next week I'm talking with Christine Kane. Guys, we're traveling into shame and identity and dealing with the unexpected as well as so much more. I cannot wait for this conversation with Christine Kane next week on Win Today. Guys, thanks so much for joining the conversation today. You know, I want to extend this conversation to you in an even greater way, and so I have a call-in number now. It's 248-266-2945. I want to invite you to call that number right now to ask me a question about relationships and health, shame, identity, fear, getting past the past, and all those things. My guess is that if you have a question about something, someone else has the same question, and so why not fight this battle together? Guys, I'll air your question in the show, I'll answer it, and I really believe a lot of people will have value added to them. Guys, thanks again for listening to the show this week. Until next time, visit me over at wintoday.tv for blog posts and archive podcasts, all aimed at helping you design your roadmap to wholeness from the inside out. Call me 248-266-2945. See you next week with Christine Kane. Bye-bye.